Boom.
I think you ought to know. Do-do-ah-dee-da, Men's Radio. Do-do-ah-dee-da, the place where men and women really speak. Do-do-ah, do-do-do-ah. Oh man, what a show. Do-do-ah-dee-da, it's Men's Radio. Do-do-ah-dee-da, this crazy show is on 3 times a week. Do-do-ah, do-do-do-ah. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Men's Radio, that's the place for you. With Russ, Kane, and Phil Dave.
Yes. A very good afternoon. Hello and welcome.
That's your proper radio voice, isn't it? That is your proper grown-up radio voice. You're taking this horribly seriously.
I have to take it seriously. And as Stephen Marsh, who's one of our regulars, will quite rightly say, looking forward to this deluxe episode. And the reason why he says it is because he, Russ Kane, and me, Phil Dave, have decided to join the good people at Delux Radio for the first time ever. So here we are on our maiden show on Delux Radio.
It's very sweet. They're taking what they call taking our feed at Delux. So if you're listening on Delux, you really haven't thought this through, have you? I'll be honest with you. You have not thought this through. It's lovely to join you. Thank you very, very much. We love the fact that all the great and the good, the grand fromages at Delux Radio and Radio Waves seem to like what we do on men's radio stations. So, hey. But it is what it is. Great. So how lovely going out all over the world. Well, we were anyway, but now we're going out even more over the world. This is great. Ready now to say hello to everybody. Chrissy Holt, hello, boy. She's in Spain. We've got to catch people up on Delux.
Oh, this year I'm off to sunny Spain. Que viva España.
Now, I say sunny Spain, but of course, actually, Chrissy Holt says, hi, boys. Very cold and windy here. Now, can we just explain to the good people at Delux, for those who don't know, by the way, that we do stream the visuals to this program live on Facebook. So as much as we'd love you to carry on listening on Delux Radio, you're also most welcome to go to facebook.com/Men's Radio STN or on YouTube and Twitter as well. Just do a search for Men's Radio. And then what you'll find is you can actually see us as well as hear us, and you'll be able to join.
I only apologize in advance. I'm so sorry. I got nothing else to say, right? You know, that's it. Hey, look, they wanted us. We're here.
And may I say, extraordinary.
Yes, say what you want.
May I say, we've got an extraordinary start to this new era for you, and what a treat we've got, because later we're going to be joined by the
laundry. That's a laundry. What? New era. It's a laundry company. Oh. You're obsessed with cleanliness. You're just obsessed.
Really, the moment.
All right, do your moment again. Go on, do your big moment again. Go on, pretend you're a proper broadcaster.
Building up our amazing guest that we've got on today, and you're talking about laundry.
Well, obviously. Well, she probably washes her. Well, she probably gets people to do it, but I mean, she's a proper grown-up journalist.
No, being 3 sheets to the wind is not the same as doing laundry. Anyway, well, right, I'm delighted.
God, you know, God.
Delighted to say that we are going to be joined by the one and only Dawn Neesom today, and she's waiting in the digital green room, poised as a spring and looking suitably horrified at what's in store. So we're very much looking forward to speaking to her very shortly. Anyway, that's all I was going to say. I was going to tell people we've got a great guest for today.
Former editor of the Daily Star, columnist, often on the front page, broadcaster, and blonde. Don't know what else to say. I'm just going on the other page, by the way. You won't want to hear this. Sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. Learn more, it says on Men's Radio Station. That's not good.
Really? That's a shame.
Yeah.
Oh, well, don't worry. It's playing for me, so I suspect it's much more likely to be your technology.
Probably
now, for anyone who doesn't know, I think it's important to let you know this, that Russ has, how can I put it delicately? Interesting internet connectivity, because many of us take very much for granted in this day and age the wonders that is broadband.
Broadband? No, you lost me now. What is that?
Fiber optic.
Is that like Pipex dial-up?
Well, for you it is. For you it is. Your equivalent is most definitely dial-up. But
I'd be happy with dial-up. I've got 2 Ovaltine tins and a load of string. Mark J.W. Thomas sounds like a producer of like Canon or one of those TV American shows. Have a great show from everyone at Delux Radio. Sounding great.
Thank
Mark,
you.
You got to get out more, mate. You got to get out more. If this is sounding great to you, wow. Now
look, I've had an eventful weekend.
I've had a terrible weekend.
Oh, I thought you don't register weekends. You've always said you don't do weekends.
It was. I couldn't believe how bored. I didn't speak to. It was just. It's rubbish. Thank God it's Monday. That's what I say.
I mean, I think if you want to get an understanding of the caliber you're in for on this program,
Yeah.
Lisa Jens has just messaged us saying, "Hi both.
Hi, Lisa.
You know I love dogs. We found out today that dogs have elbows."
What?
I mean,
dogs? How can dogs have an elbow? They don't have elbows.
Of course they do. They've got joints in their legs. Otherwise, they just have straight legs. They wouldn't be able to move them. Of course, they've got elbows.
But that's a knee. You fool. How can that be an elbow? They haven't got arms. They've got 4 legs. So that would be a knee, surely. You haven't got an elbow in your leg, have you?
Don't be
I
safe.
know you're weird, but Jesus. What?
Oh, I don't know. It's just, it must be an
No,
elbow.
they can't be. No, Lisa, you're an attractive woman. I'll give you that. But they can't have elbows. There must be knees. Michael Swindells, it's snowing up in Sheffield. Well, if you live in the north of England, what do you want? You know, you got a choice. It's snowing here as well. Ed Grossman, happy Wednesday, everyone.
It's Ed Grossman. To anyone,
Christmas Day today. I can't keep up.
To anyone listening on Deluxe, Ed is a regular listener of ours who regularly joins in and interacts with the program, which is great. Which, by the way, if you've just tuned in, you're most welcome to do as well. Facebook.com/Men's Radio STN. And what he often does is he struggles to know what the days are, you see, because we're all going through that phase where, frankly, every day is Blur's Day. So we don't really know what day one is.
Every day's what?
Blur's Day.
Oh, Blur's Day. Very good. Very good. Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
Very good. Very clever. Very clever.
Thanks. I can't take credit for that. Anyway, so about my eventful weekend, for goodness sake, it's soon going to be the end of the week by the time I told you this.
Okay.
It was quite productive.
Oh, good.
Right. And I think you've seen it.
This is my excited face.
To anyone who can't watch this, by the way, and you're listening on radio, you may like to know that Russell looks like he's chewing a wasp. Anyway, but I was going to say,
I love you've got your radio voice on today. It's killing me.
No, I have my radio voice.
No, you got your professional radio voice.
No, I am professional. I actually am professional. So.
It's very funny. Go on.
No, it's true. I can't deny that I recognize that this morning I am actually sort of speaking properly for once in my sorry life.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not enjoying it.
Is it freaking you out? Okay, well,
it's completely freaking me out. I just want Phil back with his usual incompetence.
Anyway, Mike.
Anna Kennedy, hang on, we've got royalty. Anna Kennedy, OBE, is watching and listening. Oh yeah, Anna Kennedy, morning to you. Not only is she all things autism on our sister station, which is a women's radio station, she's a fantastic tap dancer. Bizarre things that people can do. Anna Kennedy, sensational dancer. She really is very good.
Anyway, right. So yes,
your boring weekend.
This weekend was very productive because the weather was actually quite nice on Saturday. I know that it was snowing a bit today and it was all a bit rough.
Go on.
The weather wasn't bad on Saturday. So I got myself out into the garden and I redid the front garden, which was just full of dead plants. And now it actually looks quite nice. And then, of course, the snow came along and I think half the plants are dying again.
Yeah. Is there a point to this?
Excuse me, I'm sharing my weekend with a friend. What's wrong with you?
Well, who? Oh, me. Right. Okay. I didn't. Nothing. I didn't even watch TV over the weekend. The entire weekend, I didn't even watch any TV. How about that? Just didn't. Quick, why are my glasses blue? Says Chrissy Holt in Spain. Because they're tinted, so that because I'm looking at screens all day long, I don't get eye strain and headaches. That's why they are blue tinted to reduce strain.
Russ and Phil, dogs do have elbows, says Ed Grossman.
Can't argue with Ed Grossman. He's a top accountant. He knows what he's talking about.
You literally cannot argue with him. Believe
you cannot argue with Ed Grossman. Well, you can, but you won't get very far.
Right. I
then
think
I'll get messages. Hang on. Top comic, Jeff Stevenson. Excellent comic. Excellent. The best TV warm-up man in the business. The best stand-up that I know because it's completely not blue, never political, just hilarious. And Jeff was bored like everybody else. And somebody said to him, do you want to make a film? And he went, nothing to lose. What the hell? I'll make a little film. And in secret, he sent me the first thing of the film. He said, I haven't sent it to anybody else. What do you think? And I looked at this film. It's called Touching the Blue. And I got on the phone. I said, Jeff, this is absolutely fantastic. And Jeff, being Jeff, a very modest guy, thought I was being polite. It's gone and won so many awards. I'm so thrilled for him. The film's called Touching the Blue. You can get it on Amazon, starring Jeff Stevenson. In a nutshell, before we get Dawn Neesom on, he plays a washed-up professional snooker player who's given one more chance to get back into the big time in the Crucible. And it all takes place in his dressing room. It's so clever. Really love it.
Are you implying that his career has all gone to pot?
Thank you, Delux Radio. More of this where it came from. Lisa Janes. A lot of people have been asking me this. How are you feeling since your jab? I got to tell you, I went along to Guy's Hospital. That's where they wanted me to go. It was all magnificently done, as I spoke about last week, so I won't bore you with that again. No side effects whatsoever. Nothing. Can we please stop spreading doom and gloom and scaring the crap out of everybody? It was absolutely fine.
Melanie Hutchins. Phil, is that chapstick? Yes, it is, because I'm afraid the snow plays havoc with my lips.
Oh, what? You and the Huskies trying to get into talk radio? What's the matter with you? Let's bring on before she disappears.
What a good idea.
I'm full of them. Oh, no, I'm full of it. I'm full of it. That's what people say. Let's get on. A very special. It's taken me weeks to manage to persuade her. And now she's thinking, why? She's one of the busiest people in the media. She is terrific. Dawn Neesom.
Dawn, if we were in front of a live audience, I've no doubt they'd be doing this right now. No doubt. Sadly, we're not in front of a live audience for COVID reasons. So instead, you're just up with Russ and I saying, welcome.
But Dawn,
thank you very much for having me on, gents. It's lovely to be here.
I know you're the busiest person. You're the busiest. But look, my dog's excited. She's excited. So if we can't have a live audience, at least Ebony the mini schnauzer is
That'll do for me.
Thank you very much.
You've got to go and let her out now. Dawn's just got here and you're going to tell her you've got to be excused to go and let the dog out who's scratched.
No. Dawn, I don't know if you have pets or not. I know you have a husband. That doesn't quite count.
That's more than
close.
Enough. Thank you.
Close. I opened the door to the terrace to let Madam out. She took one look at the snow, thought, sod that for a game of soldiers, went straight back to her basket. That's it. She'll hold it in. She'll hold it in until the snow goes.
Dogs are far more sensible than humans, aren't they?
Damn right. You have had an illustrious. There we are. I don't want a big picture of me, thank you.
Oh my God!
This is what we want. You go up to Cinerama. We go down to like postage stamp, which is.
I like being a postage stamp. Thank you very much.
No. You're our guest. Stop it. Driving me mad now. Dawn, you've had a very long, successful career in, I'm going to call it Fleet Street, what it was Fleet Street, but in journalism. You were editor of the Daily Star. You're now one of the top columnists there, often on the front page. You're never off the radio with Mike Graham, and who I'm dying to meet. Never met him, but I'm dying to meet him one day. What do you put down to being able to stay in a always changing medium?
I think, Russ, it's honestly one of the best jobs you can do, because every single day is different. It's all I ever wanted to do from when I was a little kid, and obviously it is changing so much now at an increased pace with social media, and you can do your own podcast. You can literally just being on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. It's like being a journalist these days. So it's a fantastic career to have, and I think that the secret of having a long career in whatever industry or profession you choose is to love what you do. And I think if you love what you do, it actually ceases to be work. And it is just something that you really enjoy doing. So, you get up every day, and even in mad times like this, where, it is very hard, people are struggling. You get up every day, and every day can burst with opportunities. And, if you're enthusiastic and you're halfway there, no matter what just do for a living, and I just love what I do. And I get to talk to brilliant people like you and Phil on a snowy Monday.
Give her a couple of minutes. She'll so be
afternoon.
changing that. Give her 2 minutes. She'll be going, oh, Christ, is that the time? Go.
You're already on the show. You don't need to flatter us. But
Just be honest. Just be
John,
honest.
you've raised such a valid point, because one of my favorite quotes ever was by Confucius, who says, if you do a job you love, you'll never do a day's work in your life. It's so unbelievably true. And I think that it is so underrated and underappreciated, more importantly, for those who do actually do a job that they love doing. By and large, they don't know always how lucky they are, because I'm just as guilty, by the way, because there are days that are good and bad. You get stuck in the middle of a bad day and you think, oh, I hate my life. What the hell's going on? This is driving me mad. I just want to get out. But actually, if you stop, reset, take a step back and think, do you know what? Actually, no, I don't want to get out. There's a reason why I do what I do. It's because I love it. And not everyone can say that.
What I like, what you'll notice, Dawn, I don't know if you can see them, or maybe yes or no, is the comments. We have, this is like the most interactive show in the world, right?
Oh, I dread to think.
Oh, no. So the first one from Stephen Marsh is that a bicycle levitating in your... No, is it levitating? It looks like it's levitating in your room.
Living room, we've only got a smallish flat, and we don't have a garage or a garden or anything like that. So my living room is a bit like a branch of Evans, I have to admit. We're both the bike shops are available. We're both cyclists. So we store bikes in what is basically our hallway. I know. I had this debate with people like Mike Graham all the time about cycling.
Mike's correct.
No, it's not. We have bike in our hallway, which you can hang bikes on. No.
Dawn, I really need to thank you, Dawn, because honestly, it makes such a refreshing change from bookshelves behind. I mean, who'd be stupid enough to have a bookshelf behind them on one of these videos? That's what I ask you.
I was just going to say, Phil, I do have a bookshelf in the room as well, but the bikes are probably make a bit more sense looking at some of the titles on that shelf.
Everybody, Popular Mechanics. It's like how to annoy motorists by a cyclist. We always congratulate every guest that we get on. A, for just having the nerve to come on, but B, for not sitting in front of a bookshelf and looking incredibly intellectual.
Oh, Russ, you know me. There's no way I'm going to ever pull off that, so I don't even try.
Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward. Silly bitch, I said it. I'm not reading that one out because I'm not going to scare off our guest, but thank you.
Oh.
Cheeky, he's so cheeky. No, he's not being rude. It's just...
It's Timmy style. And you know what, Dawn, actually, I think you would be fantastic on... Timmy does a program, you see. And
we call it a program.
Yeah, well, I know. I say program in loosest possible sense. Yeah. He does a program called... it's literally called...
Here she is.
She is, that's it. Sorry, it's called Here She Is. Anyway, the program is a YouTube one, and very good, very amusing if you like it. But he gets very well-known guests on his program, and I think it'd be amazing.
It'd be hilarious. You'd be hilarious because you could rip him to bits.
Right, okay.
I'd pay money for that.
Anyway,
I would so pay money for you to go on Timmy's show and rip him to bits.
Anyway, apparently, Dawn, you do, according to Timmy, you do follow him on Twitter. So there you go.
I do, absolutely. Yes, I know. It's lovely.
Anyway, not necessarily what you're here for today, to promote other programs, but
to promote Timmy.
But Dawn, seriously, how have you been coping during the world of lockdown and pandemic and stuff like that? Because we always ask people this because everyone seems to have a different reaction. Some people say that they're fine, they're just carrying on through. Others say that they've seen a side to mental health that they never knew existed. What's your experience been like?
I think, well, Phil, I'm always one of those people that the glass is half full. So I'm lucky I'm a natural optimist. Well, unless it's wine, obviously, in which case it's mostly empty. But I am a natural optimist. And for me, it hasn't made too much difference because I left the newspaper, I left editing the Daily Star coming up to 3 years ago now, and I've been working from home as a freelance since then. So I'm not one of those people that are suddenly having to confront sitting in their living room most of the time, because I have been doing that. So it has been a huge change for me. It's been interesting. I think, like most people, the first lockdown in the spring was much easier in one way mentally to cope with, because we were all genuinely worried. We didn't know what was going on. It was much easier to comply with what we were told to be doing. And obviously the weather was so much nicer. So if you were lucky enough to have a garden, you could get out in the warm and get some fresh air, which, as we know, is so, so important for people. Yeah. This time around, obviously, I think we are lockdown weary, and I don't think it's wrong to admit that. I think most of us are. I think we want to get through this. We want to do the right thing, and most of us are doing the right thing. But I also think there's an awful lot of people now that are going, what's the end game? How long are we going to carry on like this? And I think a lot of people are suffering mentally because of that. I don't think the government and the scientific advisors have always covered themselves in glory with the way they are treating people, the messages they're giving out, and the language they're using. So I think this time around it is harder for an awful lot of people, and I really do feel for people. And I just wish now we were, the government keeps saying light at the end of the tunnel, which is a phrase I'm beginning to hate because everyone makes a joke about, well, it's a train, which
coming the other way.
Exactly. And it tends to be that. And I just wish now that, we would get clear, concise messaging from the government, and they would give us a roadmap, another phrase we're all starting to hate, as to when we get back to some semblance of normality. And obviously a lot of people, and I think there's about 3 million people who have had no support financially during the pandemic. These are the people who are running their own small businesses, who can't work but can't claim anything. So there are an awful lot of people that are really suffering financially. And I think it's all very well for people sitting in cozy, and I hate this phrase as well, middle class homes, maybe with furloughed jobs that are safe for them at the end of the pandemic, to say, it's simple, stay home, save lives. A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people need to work. And I just think the whole thing now has become so divisive. And it's almost like the debate around Brexit. We have both sides being pretty vile to one another.
Why? There's a question here from Kimmy Lashmore. Oddly enough, she preempted what I was going to ask you. And she said, don't you think the media should be more positive, especially now?
Well, Russ, Kimmy, I could not agree more. My argument from day one with this back in March, I was on our GMB with Piers Morgan, and my argument from day one has always been, we have to be so careful about the language we as the media, radio, TV, newspapers, use around what is happening to us. And I think it has been irresponsible for some media outlets, the way they have scaremongered. And I still think some are doing that. And I think there are some news channels, and I'm not going to pull people out because they're doing their job, and it's a very tough job to do at a tough time. But some are just really concentrating on terrifying people who are already terrified. And if you've got sort of any anxiety or mental health issues, the constant doom and gloom we are being fed at the moment is utterly wrong, and it doesn't need to be like that. And it is all about giving people hope and not terrifying them. Yes, okay, it is scary. It is a pandemic. People are getting ill and people are dying. However, it is all not doom and gloom. And I think Kimmy's question is absolutely bang on the money. And I think we all need now to take a step back and think, right, okay, we are scared. We need to help and support people now, not terrify them anymore.
But who is this scaremongering for? This is what I want to try and suss out, and I haven't been able to so far. Who is it benefiting? Because it's certainly not benefiting those who already take this seriously, because those who take this seriously are already either scared enough or they're doing what they're supposed to. So who's that? It's not for their benefit. Is it supposed to be scaring people who couldn't give a two fig or anything like that, sort of what they're supposed to be doing? Because I hate to tell you, if they've got that attitude, then they're just not going to change that attitude. So it's not for them. Who's it for? I literally don't understand. Scaremongering.
This is the point, Phil. I mean, it is a message that I like you, I'm confused as to who it is aimed at, as you say, because the people who are breaking the rules, I mean, blatantly breaking the rules, I mean, having parties and social gatherings and opening premises when they shouldn't do and things like that, they're not going to take any notice. Most of us are abiding by the rules. And, you know, especially the elderly and the vulnerable. My mum's friend, she lives on her own, And she has become so scared by the messaging she is receiving that now she is literally developed agoraphobia. She will not, even though she has had her first vaccination, like you, Russ, she is so terrified to even step outside her front door into her front garden. And now, she's not alone. I mean, I happen to know this one because she's my mom's neighbour, but it's like she's not alone. There are an awful lot of people
Absolutely.
are really suffering, and these are the people that are going to be the collateral damage of what we're going through at the moment. So Phil, to get back to your original question, I don't know what the scaremongering is meant to achieve, because all it's doing is probably killing some people who just cannot cope with the anxiety and the depression.
Now, Dawn, there's a chap that I know, you may well know him, called Kane. He was a senior journalist on Fleet Street. He was with Daily Mirror, I think. Kane, remind me. I'm sure it was the Daily Mirror for many, many years. And he says much of the doom and gloom is directed by the BBC, still bitter about Brexit.
Well, I mean, the BBC, look, there's a lot of airtime to fill if you're the BBC, and it's a tricky one. And I get that they are trying to be responsible and get the message across that, we should be staying at home, saving lives. And by the way, this stay at home, save lives, protect the NHS. A lot of doctors and nurses are very uneasy with that message as well, because they are saying it is getting the wrong message over. People are now scared to go to their NHS outlets, whether it's an A&E or their GPs, because they've been told they've got to stay at home and save the NHS. It's a dangerous message, because people are not getting symptoms for cancer and heart problems sorted. So, I mean, the BBC and the whole Brexit debate, I mean, they have, as I said earlier, they have become interchangeable, the level of divisiveness now that both Brexit caused and COVID is causing as well. What I don't want on my tea time news, though, no matter what broadcast channel I'm watching, is pictures from in morgues. And there was one particular incident, I don't know if you remember this, and it wasn't even this country, Russ and Phil. It was I genuinely can't remember what broadcast channel it was, but they were broadcasting live from a morgue in America, so it wasn't even in this country, and they were literally wheeling bodies through. Now, it wasn't clear whether these people had died of coronavirus or not, but it was like tea time news. Yeah. What is that going to achieve apart from worry people sick? As you say, Phil, people who are already abiding by the rules.
And what I'd quite like to see as well is that we've spoken about this before, Ross, I know, so forgive me for repeating it slightly. May I just also point out as well that to those who have just tuned in, that this is, of course, The Daily Show on Men's Radio with Russ, Kane and Phil Dave, with our guest Dawn Neesom, who joins us today. If you are tuning in on Delux Radio, you are most welcome. And of course, we're streaming live across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. But what I was going to point out was that I don't understand why the language is so selective. There is absolutely no justification, in my humble opinion, why the media don't report the number of people who have recovered from COVID, because that statistic will be known, by the way, because hospitals will record all of this data. They have to. So the number of patients that have been discharged after having COVID and who are now out of the hospital, why don't they say that? They could easily say the number that the beds have gone down as well as up. I know. They just seem to be focusing on the number of people who have died. The only good thing that I've seen in the news this whole of the last year is the number of people who have been vaccinated. That's a good number to tell us. That's what we want to hear. We need to hear the positive statistics. Stop telling us about the number of new cases of COVID. Focus on those who are recovering on it. Seriously, give some hope back to people who are already stuck in the mire of doom and gloom.
Phil, I could not agree more. And I think that is where most people are having trouble digesting endless facts and figures and graphs, and I never want to hear the phrase "next slide, please" again as long as I live.
Unless it's in a playground.
Unless it's in a playground, and I always prefer the swings in any case. Yeah, it's give us the positives as well as the negatives, and this is. The Daily Star, my newspaper, obviously, has tried to do what the Daily Star has always done, which is try to entertain. Yes, it's a newspaper, there is news in there, but it is also designed to put a smile on your face, give you a bit of a laugh, flick through it in your tea break. It's not designed to be, lecturing you or or sort of like, you know, or scaring you, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's meant to be fun. So that's what my paper is trying to do. So we are trying to jolly people through. We're a bit cheeky. We have a go at the politicians when, let's face it, most of them have needed it over the year. So it's about cheek. So my paper as a whole has definitely not been doom and gloom and trying to depress people, but there are some papers that are guilty of it. And as you say, Phil, I think, you know, we really need to get the positives over now as well, especially now, especially at this time of year. Spring is on the way. We're just around the corner from it. You know, the days are longer, daffodils in the park, etc. So I think we can now start looking forward with some positivity. And I wonder the amount of money that has been put into fighting COVID with the death stats every day. You know, if we did the same with cancer when all this is over, like so far, people have, you know, 500 people today have died of cancer, and put as much effort into fighting problems like cancer, I think would have sorted that out a lot.
Do you know what, Dawn? I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to read some of the comments out in a second, but it's odd you said that, because as a dear friend of mine who I've become close to, you know, the great comedian Richard Pryor?
Of course.
It's his daughter, Rain. And today, I'm just sending out good thoughts. She's going in for a double mastectomy on top of everything else. It's she's just found out, just had the test. So over in Baltimore, that's what's happening to her today. And yes, if and other people, the other thing, to just go back for a second, the message is save the NHS, and then people, and at first I thought you're just being bloody rude. And then I started to think about it and say, well, isn't the NHS designed to save us? And exactly. I think if you push the wrong, you know, coming out of an advertising background, if you push the wrong message, it's really hard to change, you know, to change path. If you're pushing, it's really hard to do that without looking like a complete chump. Here's a message that I wanted to read. It's from Lisa Janes. It's too big to put up because then we lose you, Dawn, which we don't want to do. But people, if you're listening, you won't understand that. But if the message is big, then the picture goes blurred. I think that many people are suffering with mental health. Absolutely. I'm home alone, says Lisa Janes, again, as my mum has been rushed back into hospital with multiple blood clots. Oh, dear, I'm sorry to hear that. And I can't see her. Scaremongering is ridiculous. People are scared to go for x-rays, blood tests. P.S. Love Dawn. Sure, I met her after Big Brother.
Oh, that's entirely possible. I mean, the Daily Star was the newspaper. We were the official newspaper for Big Brother. Yes, of course, Lisa, you did. Hello, hope you. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. Fingers, you know, praying for her, obviously. But yes, yeah, we were the Big Brother paper, and you know, back in the day, and when Lisa was in it, it was a great program, and it's sold by the bucketful. But going back to your point, Phil, about the doom mongering and the appalling language that some newspapers are using. It's not selling newspapers. This is the other issue. I mean, most newspapers at the moment have stopped the audit bureau circulation figures because obviously lots of people are going out to the shops and buying newspapers. So circulation figures aren't being counted. But, you know, I know that if you do 2 downbeat page ones with COVID, you lose sales. So it's not selling product. So why they're doing it, I'm not entirely sure. And you know, I stepped down as editor 3 years ago now. But I would be doing exactly what the team on the Daily Star are doing now, and I would be putting the positive facts out there, being cheeky, looking forward, and I think that's what people want now. That's what we all need.
Here's a good question. Oh, sorry, Phil. Here's a good question.
I just say about the other questions. Go for it. Okay.
Do you think Facebook, this is from Kimmy, do you think Facebook has made journalism amateurish and cheap? I miss great pieces.
Look, people are doing amazing things on social media. I mean, it can be good and it can be bad. And up until 3 years ago, I was never on it. I honestly thought Twitter was the spawn of Satan, and I'm not entirely sure that I was wrong on that one. But it is a necessary evil these days, especially if you're in the media. So you know, Twitter is a useful tool, and you can get good messages out there. You can get bad messages out there, and there's a lot of obviously trolls and hate on there. But I do think journalism is still, as I said at the very beginning of this, an amazing career to get into. I think it's it's a great thing to be doing, especially at the moment. You know, there are some very, very good, amazing young journalists in particular doing amazing things out there, and some of them did start on social media. So it's not always a bad thing, but yeah, there is a lot of misinformation and bad journalism on social media as well.
I have to say that's the problem. Is I think the issue is calling it journalism, because actually, sort of what worries me, especially with the BBC background, is that the number of people who are putting information out there without checking the facts first and calling it news, and that scares the hell out of me because people believe it. Timmy raises a very interesting point. He says, "I really think people are such fools." I'm going to moderate the language because we are on radio now. That they would just say, "Oh, everything is okay," and just do whatever they want. He also goes on to say, "Also, why haven't we gone into a full lockdown? It's no good if people are still allowed to leave the house to work. When we suddenly have to go into a longer lockdown because people are still going out." But he goes on to say, but there are loads of people who are not scared and still do what they wish to do. So it's a double-edged sword.
I think to blame people for going out to work in lockdown, to be honest with you, I think that's appalling, because people need to go out to work. I mean, my husband's got a manual job. He's self-employed. He gets no support from the government in any way, shape or form. And he's not alone. He works with a lot of, you know, people. It's a manual trade. They build things. And these are people that have to go to work. And, you know, I had this, it was a debate on Twitter with someone the other day. And it was like, I've gone out for your exercise, which you're allowed to do. And I've gone out on my bike. And this lady said to me, "Oh, what are you doing going out? You should be staying at home." And it's like, well, it's exercise, you're allowed, and that's very good for your mental health, not to mention your physical health. And she goes, "Yes, but you don't need to go out. Nobody needs to go out. You can have everything delivered." And it's like, hold on, who do you think's doing the delivery? Who are the ones driving the vans to deliver the stuff to your front door? You know, people need to work. We can't sit and sneer at the people crowding onto the tubes. And by the way, that service is cut now. So a tube every 10 minutes, more people are crowded onto them. But, you know, these are, you know, the jobs that are less well paid, you know, the old school working class jobs, you know, people driving buses, people working in factories, people driving delivery vans, you know, people building things. You know, these are the people that have to go to work. So I think to sneer at anybody that gets their bum out of bed on a freezing cold day, gets on a tube at 6 o'clock in the morning to go and work for 8 hours on a building site, building, for instance, they could be building a hospital, you know, building and then going back to feed their kids. You know, who has the right to say what they are doing is wrong and to sneer at them?
I think that, just to be fair to Timmy, he has messaged further to say, "I'm not blaming people who actually sort of go out to work." He also said he would go out to work if he could, but he's actually blaming the government for their mixed messaging, which
look, absolutely, Timmy, and that is my big thing from day one, is the mixed messaging the government have given people. And, you know, they have knee-jerk reactions, panic reactions from day one. And I think that has made a lot of people even more skeptical than they would have been. Look, you know, to say you're skeptical about what's happening now doesn't mean you're denying that COVID exists. Of course, we know COVID exists. And it doesn't mean you are sort of like, subscribed to the conspiracy theory. What it means is the messaging we have received from our government has been all over the shop from day one. They haven't got a lot of things right. As you say, Phil, the vaccination program is brilliant, and we actually have got something right. We are genuinely world beaters in this area. So we should be really pleased with that. But there have been an awful lot of mistakes, and I think that makes a lot of people very wary about some of the information we're currently being given.
Look, I do think, though, that I'm on Timmy's point, where I feel that he's coming from, and this I do believe there is something in this, that it's not so much the mixed messaging absolutely can be blamed to some degree. But to be fair, I believe that the messaging has developed in line with the way the science has developed. In other words, our understanding of the virus as it's gone on. The government have tried wherever possible. Some say to blame the science, others say to follow the science. Whatever way you look at it, that is what's guiding their decisions. Now, from my perspective, I believe that as individuals who are by and large sheep, that's what human nature is. We like to follow. We don't necessarily like to think for ourselves, especially when it comes to major decisions. If we are looking to government to lead those who are not in a position to lead and don't necessarily know which direction to travel, maybe it would be easier if it was black and white. I know it's not a situation that's black and white, but maybe it would be. In other words, don't go to work is a heck of a lot easier to comprehend than don't go to work unless, if you see what I mean. And that's where I feel that maybe there's something in that.
Yeah, well, you could be right, but I mean, the thing is, there are so many grey areas, and that people have to go to work. I mean, that is the bottom line, and I sort of disagree, Phil. I don't think people are sheep. I think most people, we've got ourselves pretty much through life for a certain age. We are capable of making our own decisions and using common sense, and most people would be making decisions and have been making decisions that protect them and their loved ones. I don't need the likes of Matt Hancock to tell me when and how I can go and take my exercise. I know it is perfectly safe for me to go for a solo bike ride. I don't need Matt Hancock's written permission to step outside my front door to do that. So I think, it's this patronising and this bullying as well. And then what really annoys me, Phil, is when things do go wrong and it's not the public's fault. Quite clearly it's not the public's fault, it's the government's fault. The government blame us. Well, you did this, you did wrong. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Test and tracing, PPE, care homes. Do you want to start where things have gone wrong? It's not because, the old guy next door took his dog to the park for a walk today.
This is it. The problem is, and I'd like to know where you're at on this, Dawn, is that somehow people imbue those, let's say, in power with this super brain, this fantastic knowledge that they're just like you, me, and Phil, right? People make it up as they go along. They don't have, insight, some great scientific knowledge that we don't know about. I don't mean we're doctors. I don't mean that at all. But when you're faced with something, and to add to your list of words we can't stand the sight of, unprecedented, put that word in, it's unprecedented, Dawn. What is my breakfast? It's unprecedented. Good Lord, my new jacket, it's unprecedented. All of that. It's unprecedented. It's unprecedented. Phil's headset, it's unprecedented. His new bedroom layout, unprecedented. So you can use that. But when you're faced with things that you've never seen before, don't know really what the hell it is, don't know how it's going to work out, it's a movable feast. So it's so easy to politicize this, but I always say, and I've said since day one, since last March, I think, thank God I'm not in charge, because I wouldn't know what to do.
No, of course. And I think we have all forgotten that, look, like you, Russ, we're not talking about the doctors here. We have forgotten that the people running the company are elected by us, but they are just people. They are people like us. They are fallible. So it's like, when you sort of people are going, oh, yeah, but, I'm not quite sure what this rule means, because I keep having to go at Matt Hancock, because there's a particular bee in my bonnet about him, because Matt Hancock hasn't quite explained it accurately enough. It's like, well, no, you're grown up. Use your own brains. You do not, now, especially this time round, now exactly what COVID is. You know how it spreads. You know the things to do to protect yourself and your loved ones. You do that. You do not need written instructions from a government minister, no matter which one it is, on how to walk down the street, for example. Wash your bloody hands. I mean, I learned to wash my hands as a toddler. And footprints on pavements. I mean, what is that about? I mean, insanity. Treat us like responsible adults. And before everybody shouts, yes, there, as you said, Phil, there are irresponsible people that are never going to listen to any of this. So there's nothing you can do about the people that are going to have parties and sort of.
You can't fix stupid.
Going.
Well, I beg to differ. There's nothing you can do about it. I think that those individuals should have the law come down heavy on them. I really do. And I think
absolutely. But the messaging is not going to affect how those people behave.
Oh no, absolutely. No,
it's legal things, but the messaging is important.
No, that's not messaging. That's just pure pig-headedness. But Stephen Marsh raises an interesting point. This may be going down a very dark path, which I'm just going to read out comments from him and then the response to him, and then Dawn, feel free to comment or just tell me to move on. But Stephen Marsh says, too many people are blaming our government. More countries should be blaming China. He says it's a contentious comment, but maybe it's the truth. And in reply to that, Ramsey says, for sure, this started in Wuhan. But the important thing is how national governments, or I suppose international governments actually, react to the threat. How come in New Zealand, they now have no COVID and are going to gigs? And I can't get my friends over from LA to tour in the UK until Q4 at the absolute earliest.
And I want to add one thing to that, and it's this. Why is it not okay to say it's the Chinese virus or it's the China virus, but it's perfectly acceptable to say it's the South African variant? Can you explain? You're right in the heart of the media. Explain that to me.
There is no rhyme or reason to it. It is the world of political correctness and wokeness again, isn't it? It's like, you know, you can't say it's the Chinese variant, and it's like I think the French are calling the Kent variant the English virus, and it's like, well, so that's fine for the French to do that, but no one ever can refer to it, or, you know, as Trump infamously did, as the China virus. And it's like, you know, I don't care what you call it, it's killing people, to be honest with you, and we do need to tackle it. But comparing, like, the message just now, I'm comparing the UK to places like New Zealand. I mean, you can't. You're comparing apples and pears, aren't you? I mean,
yes.
You're talking about a different country, a population that's different. I mean, you know, we are an international travel hub. No one ever said that about New Zealand. Beautiful country, but they've got more sheep than people. The way they live their lives, the way, you know, the amount of people living there, it's completely different. And they did shut down their borders entirely. They've imprisoned, but I've got a friend who is a Kiwi. His family are living in New Zealand. He can't go and see his mum and dad because they have locked people into New Zealand. Do we really want to live in a country that draconian? Do we? I think it's a dangerous path to go down.
Now, Men's Radio Station, I created it myself and Howard Jameson, my co-founder, on the basis of mental health and well-being. We've not even touched the sides in our conversation today about whole aspects of mental health, how this is causing huge pressures, depression, all sorts of things. And you've used the word roadmap because what worries me is that the way out of this is really not clear. The demands, let's just say on the NHS for a second, but the demands on the NHS for mental health before COVID were enormous. The waiting lists, crazy long. There's going to be an explosion. There's no ifs or buts. It's not even up for debate. It's huge. The demands for mental health help and assistance is going to be gigantic, and it's going to be long term. How do you think we're going to cope?
I worry, Russ, to be honest with you. I worry about mental health, obviously cancer treatments. We none of these services were brilliant before we went into COVID, and the effect of concentrating, and I think we have to be honest, almost entirely on the coronavirus pandemic at the cost of things like mental health is going to be felt for generations. We know that children are suffering hugely because of schools being closed down. We know that, domestic violence incidents have soared because people are locked into abusive relationships. I mean, there is very little they can do to escape them. So there are also, and we also know sort of like, and that's before you start on, the alcohol issues, the drug abuse issues, and even things like eating disorders. This whole lockdown system and the NHS concentrating on COVID, which of course we need to do. People are dying. We need to sort of like, look after people as much as possible. But these are things that are going to stay with us for decades, for generations.
Yes,
totally
agree. Totally agree, Dawn. Thank you.
And what really annoys me is this, and I've said this before, I'll say it 100 times if I have to. I don't understand why the degree of effort was put into building the Nightingale's hospitals. That's great. Love the Nightingale hospitals and really think what a terrific idea, only not to use them. Don't use them as an emergency. Don't wait until the NHS is bursting and that they're an overspill. put COVID patients in the Nightingales and let the mainstream hospitals carry on with their already overstretched work. And before anyone says to me, I know the NHS is already understaffed and overworked. I get that. But surely it has got to be better to keep COVID patients separate, knowing that it will make others who actually go to hospitals for treatment that otherwise they may just end up saying, oh, it's fine, I'll wait till COVID's over with, and then lose their life anyway. It's got to be better that we have at least a half-hearted NHS rather than one that is totally dominated by COVID.
Totally. The Nightingale hospitals have always been a mystery to me as well, Phil. I don't understand. It's like we built them, huge fanfare, and it was an amazing achievement.
Yeah.
And then they just sat there empty. And meanwhile, elderly people who were positive, or we didn't test them, did we? Were sent back home to care homes, which is where most of our deaths have happened, to the very vulnerable in care homes, which is absolutely heartbreaking. So, then if you do question the Nightingale hospitals, though, you are told that, well, we just don't have the staff to run them. And it's like, well, you must have known that when you
should have known that before you built the bloody thing. How can that make sense?
When building them, was it just a PR stunt or something you were doing to sort of?
They have a capacity, don't they? The one down at the XL Centre, which is up the road from you and I, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely,
basically, that's 3,000 people they could take. The most they ever had was 43 people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand that.
I don't
run hospitals, but I don't understand.
Explained it.
This is, to me, from our perspective here on Men's Radio, I think it is much less about whether or not this was a PR stunt gone wrong or what have you with the government. My point is, and this is what really worries me, is that people are going to, and this was said right at the start of the pandemic by no less than Sir Patrick Vallance himself, saying about the indirect COVID deaths. In other words, those who are going to avoid treatment, whether it be for mental or physical health, because they are too scared to go to hospital appointments to get the treatment that they so desperately need in case they catch COVID, which, by the way, there's a fairly strong chance they may even survive. We already know that statistics stand. It's approximately 85% chance of survival, roughly. Obviously, that depends based on your age and your state of health. So I appreciate if someone's actually going to a hospital appointment with ill health, then they might be more scared and more vulnerable. But for heaven's sakes, if you keep those patients separate, then you actually stand half a chance of someone going to an appointment that they need to go to. And what I worry about is whether or not we're ever going to know the true numbers of indirect COVID deaths.
All the things that I really hope comes out of what we have learned during the pandemic is that we look at the NHS and how it is run, and we start prioritizing the important parts of the NHS. I mean, I fail to understand why we pay executives and managers three-figure salaries, £150,000, £200,000, when a nurse is on £23,000. There is something gone. Look, again, it's not easy running an organisation as huge as the NHS.
Massive.
There is something gone hideously wrong when it is bogged down in red tape and we have lost sight of the priorities of what it's there for. And as you quite rightly said earlier on, Phil, it is the National Health Service. It is there to help people who need it. And this is why, I've got friends who are GPs and they are appalled by this message to say, stay home, protect the NHS. The NHS is there to protect us. And, the chances of most people surviving COVID, all terms and conditions apply, are much higher than somebody surviving bowel cancer or breast cancer if they ignore those symptoms. The message I think we should be giving to people, everybody listening, is no matter what your symptom, no matter how minor you think it is you go to your doctors. And even if you have to kick the door down because they say, oh, it's telephone appointments only, you get in there and you get that symptom checked out, because these are things you cannot and you should not be ignoring. Because
they're totally time sensitive. This is it. It's not like, let's just wait and see how the old prostate cancer is doing in a few months. No. Get in there now. You got to, and you got to badger them. Dawn, here's the thing about the NHS, and you wouldn't know this. I was called in by the Department of Health as a consultant. I did a lot of their communication work for a year. And some of the consultants from the big consulting companies, McKinsey, etc., they were on $3,000 a day. A day. That was the consultants, right? So, but when I was doing a lot of research, which I had to do for the NHS, I was only called in to do one particular project, and I stayed for a year because there was so much to be done. It was fascinating. It was started in 1949, obviously, as a huge thank you to everyone who'd made the ultimate sacrifices of World War II.
Of course.
So it became ingrained in the country's DNA, a magnificent thing to do. And in my research and all the private papers and everything that I had access to back then, by 1951, they'd realized they couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Back in 1951, they thought, this is a fabulous idea, but we haven't actually done the maths. Too late. Too late by then.
It's, as I said, I really, really do hope that we learn lessons from this. And I think there was a story broke at the weekend that the government are actually looking at something, and Matt Hancock is going to take a firmer control of the NHS as a whole, which sort of sends a slight shiver down my spine, if I'm honest. But as I said, as long as we move on and learn from mistakes, as you say, Russ, it's like, it's really, the funding of the NHS has been an issue literally from day one. And this isn't even a political point, because governments of all colours have not done the right thing by the NHS service. I mean, I don't think Tony Blair covered himself in glory with some of the things he did as well. And the coalition government, again, huge issues. So I think we all accept that something has to be done. And it is appalling the way that people are going to suffer. They are going to suffer, and it's going to be suffering for generations. I mean, the backlog of operations for cancers is frankly scary. And, the waiting times weren't great before we went into this.
Sonia Bowen says something very interesting here. Says, they have army medics giving jabs. Why couldn't we have army surgeons in the Nightingales providing cancer ops, hips replacements, and such that have been left behind? It's not all about COVID. And Ramsey says in response, Sonia, you're so right. If one thing the last 12 months has shown us, it's that the government's limited the funding to the NHS to create the conditions for a viable private health industry running along it. Not sure I agree with that, Ramsey, but anyway, let's not dwell on that. That's a completely different route to go down. And sadly, we don't have the time. Dawn Neesom, what a treat. What a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That flew past. Thank you so much for having me on. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And hopefully people will actually, any symptoms, go and get it checked out. Please do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want one promise from you. One promise only from Dawn Neesom. Please don't make me plank of the week.
No, of course not.
Please. I would be mortified.
Your name will not be mentioned.
I would be so mortified. Dawn, thank you so much. It's been an
absolute joy. Thank you.
We need to put you on the spot. Will you come back again?
Of course, more than happy. Just whenever.
Blimey. All right.
Thank you, Dawn. Keep well. Speak soon.
Good luck.
Safe cycling.
Oh, there we go.
Great.
Dawn Neesom there.
Great.
Well, wasn't
Very
she?
Interesting person.
I'm surprised. We know Dawn Neesom's amazing.
Yeah, great. So if you've just started listening to us at Men's Radio Station on Delux Radio, we hope it hasn't been too much of a culture shock. But this was us on our best behaviour. Wait till Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wait till Wednesday.
I can't deny.
Then we'll just be back to our normal selves.
Yes, you may well discover what.
And Ray Gelato, you're absolutely right. Thank you again, Ray. He does our theme tune. It was fabulous. He plays all the instruments, does all the singing. What a blooming genius he is. But he says we've got a culture here of I do what I like. Don't tell me what to do. Yeah, not wearing masks on the tube. Lovely. Eating a kebab on the tube. Oh yeah, really classy. Well done. Thanks.
Yeah, and some people, look, I think unfortunately, until you start putting punishments in place to suit people, then regrettably, it's probably not going to change. And I believe, and I'm so sure this is going to get some sort of reaction, but hey, with a minute to go, who cares? I am quite convinced that there are some people, unfortunately, who behave in this way because they've probably never seen discipline in their life. And unfortunately, Unfortunately, there is such an expression as you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I'm afraid if you don't discipline someone at a very young age, and it don't necessarily mean violent, by the way, if anyone starts getting all funny saying, oh, do you believe in smacking children? Nothing like that. But discipline can come in all forms. and verbal discipline can be just as effective if done properly. The fact that we have got a feral section of society who seems to think it's okay for them to do whatever the heck they like, I think is a real sad indictment on the way that we behave as a country. But alas, can't win them all. That's it for today. We will see you. You there, Arcade?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was just listening to this fantastic monologue. I thought, blimey, it's one of the thesaurus this morning.
Anyway, Russ and I will be back on Wednesday at midday. So do join us there, whether it is on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or of course, Delux Radio. He's Ross Kane. I'm Phil Dave. Have a great day. Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, gang.